Welcome to the Twist News. I'm Erika Grey. Today we're going to look at the 10 myths about the European Union. And the first one is that the European Union is an economic grouping. It is not just an economic grouping. The economic was the first step in political union. It was a political union from its inception, but the economic was orchestrated to be the path to the political. Now to myth number 2. The European Union is going to fall apart. Now this has been going on for decades, and it's clickbait, and a lot of articles have talked about it. Every crisis that the European Union has, that it's going to fall apart. Not only is it not going to fall apart, but it wasn't going to fall apart then. And if you've ever seen its headquarters in Brussels or the size of the Parliament in Strasbourg, just the buildings alone and the scope, the size, lets you know this is a serious entity that is well developed. And it wasn't falling apart 30 years ago, it wasn't falling apart 20 years ago, and it's not going to fall apart now. So that's myth number 2. Myth number 3. The Council President is the European Union's leading president. When Herman von Rompuy became the first Council President, because it was the Lisbon Treaty that established the Council Presidency, everybody thought he was the president of the EU. Right now, people think it's Charles Michel. Wrong. The leading presidency is the Commission. So that's our next myth that we just addressed. Now for myth number, the European Union has no power. It's written the rules for the internet through its Digital Services Act, as well as other rules that it's already beginning to write for the world. Now you say write for the world. Well, if you want to trade with this enormous empire, then you would need to adopt these rules in order to do business within the EU. So in a sense, if it writes rules for itself and companies within the EU have to follow them, guess what? Companies around the globe have to follow them. And Emmanuel Macron, when he spoke at the Netherlands, stated that there would be a reciprocity clause, which means that if you're going to trade with the European Union, you're going to have to adopt some of its laws. And guess what? He emphasized that these laws would not deal with trade. So that is the next myth that we just addressed. And number 5, Germany leads the European Union. Now, this has been a myth for some time. Actually, Germany is contained within the European Union. Originally, the European Coal and Steel Community of 1951, which institutionalized the coal and steel of France and Germany, did so that it would contain Germany and help to eliminate war. And the common market also formed for that purpose in 1957, which just elaborated and added another dimension to the European coal and steel community. The idea is that many believe this because Germany is, and was for some time, the leading economy in the European Union, the strongest economically. But Germany and also France are part of the German-French axis, which those two nations have always been the axis of European integration. So those who said that Germany headed the Union, missed out on the French part or the French-German axis, but also the fact that Germany was contained within the European Union, and part of the reason for the formation was to contain Germany. In addition, Germany is prosperous because of its trade with the European Union and because of it being within the EU. So another myth, people looking at Germany as if Germany became very strong on its own, by itself, was now heading the Union and will be responsible, some even teach, for the reemergence at a future date of another right. Well, wrong. Myth, myth, myth. Number 6, the European Union is democratic. Now, I like to talk about its brand of democracy. It does have a different brand of democracy than other democracies, but it is not democratic because there is what is called a democratic deficit, which has to do with its voting procedures and also the powers not necessarily being fully balanced. The Commission has a little bit too much, and it's not fully balanced by the Parliament. And also, there are the voting procedures that make it not entirely democratic. So there is a democratic deficit that has been addressed, still being addressed, and worked on to make the EU more democratic. Number 7, the European Union follows US policy. Not at all. The European Union is its own entity. It has made it clear it is not following US policy. It made it clear to Biden during a summit that it's not following US policy. It is now doing what is best for Europe, what is best for its empire. Number 8, the European Union is a confederation. Not really. Not really a confederation. It's actually a federation, but not a full federation. It's federation, little bit part confederation, but it's built along a federal model, meaning that the nation states relinquish their sovereignty to a federal body, and the liberals are more federalist and the conservatives are more confederalist, and both are pulling at each other because one wants more federation, one wants more confederation, but the EU is built along a federal model, and it also has aspects of a confederation, but it is not a total confederation, so that is a myth. Number 9, NATO is its military. Well, for several decades, at least, the EU has been in the process of building its own military and figuring this all out and adding more dimensions with each treaty, which the Lisbon Treaty added with PESCO and the European External Action Service. So it is building its own military, and NATO will be a pillar. NATO will not be its military, but NATO will serve another purpose. Now, the United States likes to think that NATO is the European Union's military, but this was the point that was made clear to Joe Biden that it is not. But NATO will be a pillar. That's it. And number 10, the euro will fail. Time and time again, when there's been an economic crisis, the European sovereign debt crisis, it was stated that the euro is going to fall apart. Just as the EU is not going to fall apart, neither will the euro. There is a lot of work being done right now to boost up the euro, to add the dimensions and the nuances to strengthen it, as well as to make it more attractive for a reserve currency. And it wasn't long after the euro was launched by the Maastricht Treaty that it became the second leading world's reserve. Now, it's hit some bumps, but there's a lot of work going on to strengthen the euro. And by the way, the European Central Bank was made an institution of the European Union in the Lisbon Treaty. So it's an integral part. The euro, just as Europe, is not going to fall apart. So there are your 10 leading myths about the European Union. I hope you found this informative. Stay tuned for more. And if you don't subscribe to The Twist, be sure to subscribe. Till next time.